truly has the promise of our Lord been fulfilled. And they fall down on their faces in tears, and it increases them in humility. And so again, I ask, what is our reaction? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes those people who have that pure state of heart, that when this Quran is recited, it has an impact on them. It has an effect on them. It causes them to fall to the ground crying and in prostration, increasing their closeness and humility to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we don't, then it's an indication of the state of our hearts. Not so that we abandon hope, but so that we come to a realization that we have to do something about it, because as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, in the end, neither your wealth nor your children will be of any benefit. When you come before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's the condition of the heart that you bring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we have to ask ourselves, what is it that our hearts are conditioned to? You know, heartbeats entrain with what's around them. If you put a baby on your chest, their heartbeat will soon start to match your own. People in very close proximity, their heartbeats will start to entrain. They'll start to match each other. And so is true with the spiritual hearts. When the Sahaba used to sit with the Prophet ﷺ, they would find themselves to be in a high state of iman, in a high state of taqwa and awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the companions even felt that he was a hypocrite, because he said, when I would sit with the Prophet ﷺ and he was talking, I would feel like I could see paradise in front of me, and I was so focused and everything was about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then I go home and I'm with my family and I forget those things. They're not as present. And the Prophet ﷺ said it's not hypocrisy. He said if you could maintain that state, that you'd find the angels lined up in the street shaking your hands as you walked by. But the point being that when the companions were sitting with the Messenger of Allah, their hearts were entrained with His. And as the best of humanity and the best of creation, we know His heart was also the best. And so when the hearts entrained with His, their hearts were at a high state. But so our hearts entrained with whatever is around us. How many times have you seen somebody tuned in to the boob tube, the television set, and you're trying to get their attention and you're calling their name, and they're completely oblivious. You even walk over sometimes and wave your hand in front of them, and it takes a few minutes before they turn up, suddenly start, oh, what? Because their hearts are entrained with the TV, and I wonder what message it is that they're being entrained and internalizing. One of our scholars mentioned the example of what a pure heart should be like. And he mentioned that it was like a body of water. If you imagine a still pond, if a leaf floats down and gently touches onto the surface of the pond, you still see the ripples moving throughout the entire pond. And he said, this is the pure heart. Hence, when the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioned, you see the ripples of that moving throughout the heart. When the ayat of Quran are recited, you can see easily and immediately the effect upon the heart. But then he said, the hard heart, or the dead heart, is like also a body of water, but it's like the ocean in a storm, such that even if you were to throw in a huge boulder, you wouldn't notice it. There would be no extra impact from the boulder crushing down onto the waves of an ocean in a big storm. And so it is, we see that horrific things happen around the world, whether it's to the Rohingya or the Syrians, or unfortunately, pick your country, where you have people being abused in unimaginable degrees and in quantities. And yet, so many of us just go on with our lives, with our meals, unaffected. Because our hearts have a condition. If people can move forward, please. So much so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, because we want to make sure that we don't insult the rocks when we say that people have hard hearts. ثم قست قلوبكم من بعد ذلك فهي كالحجارة أو أشد قسوة وإن من الحجارة لما يتفجر منه الأنهار وإن منها لما يشقق فيخرج منه الماء وإن منها لما يهبط من خشية الله وما الله بغافل عما تعملون. And thenceforth were your hearts hardened, and they became like a rock, or even worse in hardness. For among the rocks there are some from which rivers gush forth, and others there are which, when split asunder, send forth water, and others which sink for the fear of Allah, and Allah is not unmindful of what you do. And that's the question, my dear brothers and sisters, for each of us to answer. What is the condition of our heart? Not what's the right answer to give, not just something we gloss over and say, yeah, no, you're right, no, it's a good point, and then we just continue on about our life because our heart is perhaps in that state of the stormy sea where nothing affects us. Until that moment of death comes, then we wake up, and it's too late. Centuries ago, some people came to a pious man in their town, and they said to him, we noticed that our dua aren't being answered. How come? And we should pay heed to it, because Allah knows best that we make a lot of dua for our brothers and sisters around the world, but we have to wonder why in so many cases it seems as if our dua aren't being answered. And he told them that your dua are not being answered because your hearts are dead. He said, you know Allah, but you don't fully practice His deen. He said, you read the Quran, but you don't understand it or act upon it. He said, you claim to love the Messenger of Allah, and yet you ignore His Sunnah and don't follow it. He said, you know that death is certain, and yet you make no preparations for it. You know that Shaitan is your open enemy, and yet you obey him. You know that paradise is true, yet you make little effort to strive for it. He said, you know that the hellfire is true, but you make no efforts to avoid it. He said, you wake in the morning and you talk of the sins of others while you ignore your own sins and state. And he said, you bury your dead, and yet you learn no lessons from them. And indeed, how many times have we been to a funeral and we're burying somebody in the ground, and before the dirt is even put over them, you'll hear around you conversation and laughter and jokes, and people talking about their business and what they have to do next, with no time spent in reflection and contemplation that we all make that trip, and Allah knows best when it is, because none of us have any guarantee of even the next minute, much less our lunch plans or dinner plans or next business plan or anything else. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر لي ولكم. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for forgiveness. إن الله غفور رحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, ومن أعرض عن ذكري فإن له معيشة ضنكا ونحشره يوم القيامة أعمى قال ربي لما حشرتني أعمى وقد كنت بصيرا قال كذلك أتتك آياتنا فنسيتها وكذلك اليوم تنسى وكذلك نجزي من أسرف ولم يؤمن بآيات ربه ولعذاب الآخرة أشد وأبقى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in approximate meaning, but whoever turns away from my message, verily for him is a life narrowed down, and we shall raise him up blind on the day of judgment. He will say, O my Lord, why have you raised me blind when I had sight before? Allah will say, thus when our signs came to you, did you disregard them? And so this day you will be disregarded. And thus do we recompense him who transgresses beyond the bounds and believes not in the signs of his Lord. And the penalty of the hereafter is far more grievous and enduring. Understand, my brothers and sisters, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't turn away from us, but we turn away from him. And by ignoring his signs and ignoring the instructions of his messenger, we ultimately destroy ourselves. And at the heart of that is our hearts. And this is why the Prophet ﷺ said there is a morsel of flesh in the body, which if it is sound, the entire body is sound. And if it is corrupt, the entire body is corrupt. And truly it is the heart. Because indeed in both the physical and spiritual realms, it is the heart that is at the center of our bodies, that is the center of our beings. Physically, if your heart is in trouble, you will be in trouble. And you can speak to cardiologists, though they know very little ultimately about the heart and why it does everything it does. But the heart, physically, if it's in trouble, your body will be in trouble. And spiritually, when your heart is in trouble, everything will be in trouble. And we need to understand, because sometimes we want to just blame shaitan for everything, that the shaitan can't read our minds. All he can do is whisper to our hearts. And when our heart is strong, shaitan can scream and it will have no effect because it doesn't even come to us. But when our hearts are weak, then it's ripe for the whispering of shaitan. Which is why if we find ourselves always running to and fro and easily swayed by every little thing around us, again, it's a check for us to know the condition of our heart. So we must always be in a state where we strive to save our hearts and to strengthen our hearts, so that whenever our time comes, that by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy and will, we will achieve that state of having qalbun salim, a pure heart, that we meet him. And the Prophet ﷺ, he gave us some advice. He told us that there are three things which destroy the heart. In other words, these are three things we should strive to remove from our lives, if at all possible. He said greed destroys the heart. And we could give an entire khutbah on greed and how we see it impacting the world around us. But we don't want to focus necessarily on the world around us in the moment. We want to focus on ourselves and ask yourself, how does greed motivate you? And in what ways has greed caused you to do things that you shouldn't do? To oppress the rights of others, and small or big things. But greed is something that destroys the hearts. Desires. And here we're talking about the shahawat, the desires of the haram things, if you will. Following those things, doing whatever we feel like doing just because we feel like doing it. But this blind following of the desires. And pride. Pride in the sense that you look down on others. That you think that you are better than anybody else. Because the reality is, as far as any one of us is concerned, we are the very worst of people. Because we know everything about ourselves, every shortcoming, every mistake, every sin. But from what we know of the others, I see good around me. And for any skill or talent or ability or wealth or position or anything that I have to know that it only came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so therefore, that's certainly not a means for me to look down upon anybody else. So having any pride will destroy our hearts. Good pride is fine. Good pride is, I did a good job here. What do you think? I'm proud of this good work I did. That's good. We're supposed to have that kind of pride. That's being proud of what we do. That's good pride. I'm talking about that pride where you think you're better than somebody else. That destroys the hearts. And then the Prophet ﷺ said that there are three things that save the heart. He said humbleness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in open and in secret. So we have a humble state with Allah, not just in front of the people, where people go, oh, mashallah, he's such a humble brother. Yes, thank you, I'm so humble. Right? But when you're in secret, when you're getting up in the middle of the night, crying before your Lord out of humbleness to Him. Humbleness to Allah in the open and in secret will save our hearts. Moderation in poverty and wealth. Our deen is a middle way, and we have to have a balance. And so we must be moderate. Whether Allah has blessed you with much, yes, enjoy some of that wealth, but be moderate, give. Or He is testing you perhaps, or maybe even it's a blessing, that you have very little, and yet still in that there is a balance of moderation. And finally, justice, whether it is good for you or bad for you, saves the heart. We're told, وَقُولُوا قَوْلًا سَدِيدًا يُصْلِحْ لَكُمْ أَعْمَالِكُم. Speak words that are straightforward and true, and Allah will make your deeds righteous and forgive you of your sins. So we must always be a people who stand up for justice, who stand up for what's right, even if it's against our own selves, to be a people of truth. Those are the things that save the hearts. And then he said three things elevate the hearts. He said giving the salams between you. And we know the Prophet ﷺ said that you should give salams to those you know and those you don't know. And understand that when you say salamu alaykum to somebody, that's a dua. You're asking, may Allah send peace upon you. So we're told, give the salams between you. Those you know and those you don't know. Make a point today, before you leave, give some warm salams filled with love and good intention for at least 3 other people you don't know. And you'll see, it makes you feel good. And it elevates our hearts. Then we're told, feeding the people. And this is why it's not unusual that anywhere you go in the Muslim world, you get dragged in to be fed. It's one of the sunnahs of our ummah, that we love to feed the people, and it elevates the hearts. You feel good when you can feed others, and we feel good when we're invited for food. And the third is prayer at night alone, that elevates the heart. To get up at night, to spend time when no one else is around, no one else sees, and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and pray. And finally he said that there are 3 things that keep the heart clean. He said maintaining your wudu. Always strive to be in a state of wudu. And especially in today's day and age, brothers and sisters, we really don't have any excuse not to always be in a state of wudu, because we always have access to water for the most part. So it's very easy for us, if we want to maintain and be in a state of wudu. Number 3, he said, move with the jama'ah. Stick with the group of Muslims, even if you feel guilty. Because here's the good news. If you feel guilty, it's a sign that your heart is still alive. Because someone whose heart is dead, they engage and do whatever, and they don't even feel it. So if we're in a state where we're with the Muslims and maybe we're feeling guilty about this thing or that, that's good. Your heart's alive. It means you're concerned about your state and your presence. And finally he said to keep the heart clean, time yourself with the prayer. So when we get together, let's plan to get together not at 5 o'clock, but let's get together right after Asr. Let's go for dinner between Maghrib and Isha. Let me stop by your house after Dhuhr tomorrow. Time yourself with the prayer. Make that the way in which we balance ourselves and our lives. You see, my dear brothers and sisters, at the end of the day, we don't know when our day will end. And so we have to constantly strive to polish our heart, to elevate our heart, to remove those things that take us down. It's about always looking to say, you know what, I have today, I'm alive today, so it's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what am I going to do today? Because it's not about how we were yesterday, but it's about what we are going to do in the moment that we have right now. And we're judged by the last of our deeds, not the first of our deeds. And when it comes to the state of our heart, it's like being on a bicycle. You're either working and you're riding uphill, or if you're not, you're going backwards. And so it's a constant thing. It's not a thing where we say, oh yes, I've achieved my state with Allah, check, I'm done, and now I'm just coasting from here on out. And it's that constant polishing. Just like if you have some item of brass or steel or silver or iron, right? It's not a coincidence. All of those things rust or tarnish. And if you want to keep them in a good state, you polish them and you polish them on a regular basis, and you make sure they're in a good environment. Some environments are more problematic than certain metals than others. Some environments are more problematic for our hearts than others. So remove your hearts from those environments that cause it to rust or tarnish quickly. And even in the best of environments, polish, elevate, shine your heart, so that whenever we meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we meet Him in a state that is salim. And no matter how sick our heart might be, there is hope. And we can turn it around, and we can cure our hearts. And we ask that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reach Him in a state with our hearts that are salim. اللهم اتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اغفر لي ولوالدينا والذين سبقونا بالإيمان ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلم تسليما. اذكروا الله يذكركم وادعوه يستجب لكم ولذكر الله أكبر وأقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
استقيموا واستووا ساووا صفوفكم فإن تسوية الصف من تمام الصلاة. الله أكبر. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. وإذ قتلتم نفسا فادارأتم فيها والله مخرج ما كنتم تكتمون فقلنا اضربوه ببعضها كذلك يحيي الله الموتى ويريكم آياته لعلكم تعقلون ثم قست قلوبكم من بعد ذلك فهي كالحجارة أو أشد قسوة وإن من الحجارة لما يتفجر منه الأنهار وإن منها لما يشقق فيخرج منه الماء وإن منها لما يهبط من خشية الله وما الله بغافل عما تعملون. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. إنما المؤمنون الذين إذا ذكر الله وجلت قلوبهم وإذا تليت عليهم آياته زادتهم إيمانا وعلى ربهم يتوكلون الذين يقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون أولئك هم المؤمنون حقا لهم درجات عند ربهم ومغفرة ورزق كريم. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده.
الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. That counts as my three people right there. That counts as my three people that Riyad was talking about in the khutbah. So that's my three. That's a lot more than three, so I get extra credit, mashallah. So just a couple announcements before you begin your weekend, inshallah ta'ala. Please give to the masjid as much as you can. Like $20 a week from everybody would really help the masjid out a lot. There's no wazira, there's no awqaf, there's nothing that supports the mosque except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and then you. So if you don't have money, I have a credit card machine here. but not credit card because we don't believe in interest, right? So your debit cards, inshallah. Downstairs is tea time. The food bank is open. Tonight at 8 o'clock we have a class on kind of what Riyad was talking about falling in love with Allah, about how to clean your heart, how to purify your heart, how to be one of those people that loses ego, inshallah, loses those things, inshallah ta'ala. I think those are all the announcements I have. I'm going off of here because I don't have my phone with me. I want to thank Riyad for coming and giving the khutbah, inshallah. Anytime there's a khutbah in which Ibrahim ibn Adham is mentioned and he's quoted, I'm going to like that khutbah. So jazakallahu khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. But it wasn't Imam Ali, it was Ibrahim ibn Adham.